Hey, George, guess what?
What?
Oh, no, not again. George, you there?
Yeah.
George?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. We're live. I had to.
You know, you're the one who told me to try to refrain from swearing for the first.
So we are live. We've got George C. Romero in this new thing called Indie Brigade. Tell us exactly what we're going to be doing here.
Well, first of all, welcome to episode 1, Redux, Redo, however you want to pronounce it. That's kind of where we're at right now. If you tuned in last time, you know we had some technical problems. We're both very sorry for that, and it appears that we are fixed and up and running now. So first, I'd like to say a huge thanks to Joe Ridgely for reaching out to me in the first place to produce the Indie Brigade. It's something that I kind of always wanted to do, but never knew where to start. And Joe is a phenomenal producer, and he's been doing a great job killing it for us.
I appreciate that, sir.
Not at all. So it's just the truth, you know, I mean, and where we're at here with the Indie Brigade, what it is, what's going on, what we're going to talk about, all that stuff. I don't know, for a lot of you who maybe are early viewers or people who know me personally, you know that this is pretty much my personality. You're not going to get anything different than that. Some people may find that boring. Some people may find that abrasive. Some people may like it, but it doesn't really matter, and I don't really care. What the Indie Brigade is about coming together as a community for independent filmmakers. It's about not necessarily, obviously it's about plugging work that we're doing, talking about projects we have going on, but more than that, it's about talking about the higher level of creativity that goes into this. It's about the process. It's about breaking down all of the things that we run into as independent filmmakers and artists and creatives and musicians and authors and whatever we are. The barriers that we face trying to get our work done, trying to find work, trying to sell work, trying to exist in this business. From time to time, we're going to have some really great sort of guests on from more of the business side of the industry, distribution professionals, people like that to come on and talk about the straight.
I may have to interrupt you because people are saying there's no sound. I hear you perfectly fine.
Interesting. Well, that's, you hear me?
I hear you.
So my audio is good. Somebody says I can hear and see. Okay, so I guess we're good. Thanks for derailing that train of thought, Joe.
Oh,
Awesome producer.
Ron, can you hear? I can hear and see. Well, okay. Can you guys actually? I don't know if he was being sarcastic or. Okay, now I can hear.
Okay, so we're good. Okay, so anyway, to pick up where I left off, that's essentially the core of the Indie Brigade, and the cool thing about it, and what I'm really hoping to achieve with it, is a way to kind of bring people together from different walks of the independent world of creators, from musicians to filmmakers to authors and writers and guests that we have on, and people who become affiliated and associated with the show. We're going to have a secret online community for members of the Indie Brigade. One sure way to get in is to be on the podcast. Another sure way to get in is to be an activist for us. Spread the word, talk about the truth that we're out here talking about, and let everybody know that we're here and we're going to talk the hard talks. And we're going to have experiences on here that a lot of people may or may not have experience with. For instance, tonight, the first guest is a guy named Scott Lake, who's a dear friend of mine, and came to me a while back with a script that he had conceived called Killing Time and asked me if I would get involved with it. And getting involved with it was one of the more fun experiences of my recent life. Scott's a great guy. It was a phenomenal story. And it was a great time to help him out and be part of it. Another guy that we're going to have on right after Scott and with Scott is a guy named Chuck Daniels. Chuck is from a band called Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. He's another dear friend of mine. And one of the cool things that came out of the failed episode 1 of the Indie Brigade was sort of these two guys talking. Chuck's band is phenomenal and they do great music, and they're looking to get into scoring some films. It's very doom, very atmospheric, very dark, and it's some of my favorite stuff. And Scott's story kind of, I think Scott spoke like that to him a little bit. So these two guys are now in touch, and Chuck is doing music for Scott's film. That's a direct result of them being a part of the Indie Brigade, and it's something I'm really proud of, on top of being proud of being involved with both of them independently. So, these are the kind of things that I hope viewers can expect from getting involved with the Indie Brigade and becoming part of the Indie Brigade. And that's about it. After those two guys, we got a guy named Bryan Tann, who's a great guy, a phenomenal author. He is one of the main hosts of Plotaholics, and he's a phenomenal guy to talk to. So I'm excited to have him on. He's a brilliant author, and he's got a pretty unique perspective on his own creative process. So that's going to be really cool to talk about.
Awesome.
After Bryan, we've got, of course, the infamous Dan Yeager coming on. He had me on his podcast not long ago, and I'm really excited that he's on episode 1, Redux. So there you go, Joe. There's your intro, episode 1 intro, Redux. Everything
beautiful. Well, without further ado, I'm going to get Scott up on here.
I'm going to drink some coffee out of my woodworking mug.
And Mr. Scott Lake, there you are. I'm going to leave you gentlemen at it, and I'll be back shortly with Chuck.
We'll leave the door cracked, Joe. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I want you to know that pin that you gave me is on my workshop apron. And
nice.
I wear it proudly. And as we begin to create some content out of the wood shop, it's going to be featured prominently. So I'm excited about that.
That makes me happy.
Well, it makes me happy that you came on episode 1, man. And it makes me happy that you sent me your concept for Killing Time, like a year and a half ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, listen, just for anybody who doesn't know, why don't you give them sort of the quick rundown, the quick 2-minute, I'm Scott Lake, here's who I am, here's what I do. Tell them about, horror movie freaks and all that stuff.
All right, so Scott Lake, CEO of Horror Movie Freaks. We have been around for going on about 4 years now, and our main strive is any and everything in the indie genre for horror, whether it's authors and their books, film, music, whatever. If it's horror-based, we want to hear about it. We want to share it and get your product out there. On top of that, HMF has allowed me to meet quite a few interesting people and somehow landed me and you meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin Apello.
Right?
From there, it's pretty much been history for you and I, just meeting and constantly talking about insane things.
Yeah, we became fast friends, didn't we?
We really did.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool. And you were probably the first representation of a creative film centric life here in Kentucky that I had when I moved here. And you're probably my first friend in the whole state, and definitely my best friend. So
that definitely means a lot.
And same with Chuck, and that's why I'm just so thrilled that 2 of my brothers have figured out how to work together on something really cool. But before we get into that, let just like the actual production, let's go back and kind of talk about your experience. Let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about your creative behind it and what drove you to come up with a story like this.
Well, a lot of it came out of you and I having a conversation about Time Cop.
Oh, the Time Cop reference. There it is.
I'm still so sad we couldn't get that poster. I'm
Yeah,
so
I
sad
know.
we couldn't get that poster.
I know.
But yeah, from there, that conversation just went into my brain as, well, what about home invasion?
Right. Well, okay, but I mean, I understand that, but I want to talk a little bit about like your creative that went into it. I want to talk about the thing that drove you to go from somebody who had never done this before to somebody who has now done this? I want to talk about that inner creative of yours, that thing that was kind of yelling, Scott, you have to do this. That's what I want you to kind of talk about. It's like I said, this isn't really going to be the normal kind of show. I really want to get into like this kind of stuff. So if you're comfortable talking about that kind of deep stuff, I would like you to do that.
So for the longest time, my brain has constantly just been in a mode of go, 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 go. I've created so many different game worlds for games and this, that, or the other, but I was never able to really put anything into place, and something just Messiah of Midian has just died. Sorry, Brett Gray. If you guys have noticed that before it fell, it was a Brett Gray original. But yeah, I digress. Eventually ended up meeting people like you and Thai Guberman, and you all started pushing me more in this area to start writing. And when I finally sat down and started typing up my first script, which was Straight Jacket Seduction, fun little circus sideshow centric short film, that's when it all just really started coming together for me and pointing me in the direction of, let's make a movie. So
you essentially, so your big move was actually to write a script, which I read it, and it was really good. And I remember calling you up and telling you were a good writer and you should keep doing it. And but now you've gone and you've made this movie. So in terms of, how are you now? How is your creative now as opposed to how it was before? Like you were all charged up like a horse waiting at the starting gate, but nobody would open the gate. So now how do you feel that you've run a race? You know what I mean?
Well, there's still a lot of chaos that goes on for the creative process for what I'm doing, but it's more focused, if that makes sense. I now know that, hey, if I work hard enough and I do shit the right way, I might actually be able to make a film out of one of these.
Right.
So I'm just continuing to push as hard as I can for it, and I don't know. I'm losing track of this as we go. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why.
What do you mean you're losing track of? You mean of the film or of this conversation?
No, of this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, well, first of all, man, you got to find it. So, okay. So let me ask you this. So tell me something that you thought you knew about the process of making a film that was completely thrown out the window once you had some practical experience doing it. In other words, do you understand? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I ever really had. I've just got stuff falling off the wall over here, guys.
Is there like an earthquake going on?
I'm pretty sure you'd feel it too, man. Anywho,
what were the things you loved about being on set? What are some of the things that you didn't anticipate before the first time you walked on a movie set to direct it? What are some of the pitfalls that you ran into? Let's talk about some of the tough stuff that you had to deal with.
Well, honestly, I had a really smooth set for my first film.
Yeah.
Josh Mabe had really had put everything together, and I just had to show up in North Carolina to direct.
Yeah. What was that process like for you? I mean,
well, just for the pure fact of not having to really do anything, just sit back and wait for the call to come up there. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel a little cheated. Like I missed part of the experience, but I'm grateful that he was there to do it.
Well, yeah, a good producer is gold.
The producer is hard to find.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I know for a fact that you ran into a lot of challenges, So
yeah, we had a couple of different actors where things happened that they had to drop out, so we had to do a quick run and snatch up somebody else. It actually allowed for J. Allen Tucker to get his first lead character.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, on one hand, it sucks that we lost. Excuse me. It sucks that we lost Chris because he has everything I've seen him in so far. All the short films he's been a part of have just been insane. He's just amazing with his delivery. So it was a shame we didn't get to have him on set for it. But Jay stepping up and taking over, I think he did pretty damn good for his first go as a lead actor.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far of the rough cut, I'd say he did a pretty good job. So I'm looking forward to diving into that with you as well.
Our sound guy was phenomenal too, Tony Olson.
Yeah,
That guy, man, he just consummate professional, just nailed it. I trusted him to know what we were looking for as far as audio went, and I think he did a good job of nailing it.
good. Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say the cinematography looks great from what I've seen too.
That is Austin Bidikofer.
Great color.
Austin Bidikofer, he's 21 years old, young guy, but a freaking genius with that camera.
Yeah.
And he'll play off of whatever you tell him, and he'll throw out a few ideas. And if you're smart, you'll listen to him, and you'll shoot his ideas along with yours.
Right. So you got good stuff. You're in the rough edit phase now. Let's talk about the rough edit phase for a few minutes. Talk about how you felt the first time you watched the rough cut you got from the editor.
I was so nervous. I didn't know if I was getting ready to watch something where I just completely butchered everything I set out to do, or if I put together something even remotely decent. And I'm happy. I'm happy with what I've got. I want to cut it down a little bit, get it further away from that 15 minutes. But yeah, it's going to be interesting getting in there and really getting into it.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're specifically nervous about with regard to your getting it finished, or your edit, or your rough edit, or anything like that?
Nothing I'm really nervous about so much as just making sure everything looks good.
Well, I'm sure from what I've seen it does. So,
well, Jason Biggert, who is our editor, fantastic.
good.
And he is a hardworking guy. On top of a full-time job, he's constantly working films as well. So, much love to him.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think maybe, and just a note to anybody to mention, if you see my eyes moving around, because the cameras bounce around the screen, so I'm following that. And I also take notes when people talk, so I can refer to them in our conversation.
I also want to show something off real quick that our producer here, Joe, his daughter did for the film Killing Time. So she painted this specifically for my movie.
That's really cool. And you featured it in there and everything.
Mm-hmm. It will be in the teenage daughter's bedroom.
Cool.
At least it should be in the teenage daughter's bedroom.
Very cool. Well, I think we should probably bring Chuck on. So Scott, if you don't mind standing by while I just talk to Chuck for a minute, and then we'll link all of us back up. We can kind of keep this conversation going about the whole process. And
Absolutely.
Sounds good to me.
Scott, I'm going to drop you back down in the lobby. I want to, again, thank you about the whole painting of my daughter. She's ecstatic. She was able to go in her freshman year going, I got an Internet Movie Database page because my art was featured. I was like, don't say that.
oh, man.
But all right, give me 1 second, and we're going to get Chuck up on here.
Chuck,
What's up, brother?
how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good.
Good.
I'm a little out of breath. I just had to chase my Chihuahua right before going on, and I've been over here trying not to die. So
Well, I'm glad you didn't die, brother. I'm glad you didn't die. How's things other than the Chihuahua? Good.
yeah, things are pretty good. Just been kind of a chill afternoon for the most part.
Good.
Been out shopping for things for my son's birthday party tomorrow.
Nice. Well, just to formally introduce you, everybody, this is Chuck Daniels from Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. A dear friend of mine. The band is great. We just saw them live a couple of weeks ago. They killed it. Chuck, why don't you kind of just fill us in about you, about Bastard Sons, about what you're doing now, where people can find your music, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, we've been a band for about. I'm probably off a little bit, but we've been a band for about 7 years, maybe, give or take. And only in the last couple of years we've really been playing a lot of shows. We've kind of chilled out a little bit now, just because we're working on trying to get some more releases out there, more of the stuff that we play live. I am answering your question correctly, aren't I?
Yeah, man.
Okay, just making sure, man. Just making sure. And trying to get some more material out there. You can find us on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, maybe, and maybe one or two other places. We've done. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I lost my train of thought on that one, but you know me.
So we just go to these things: Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes. Just search for your band name.
Yeah. Just look for Bastard Sons of Judas Goat.
And you're on Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah, of course. Which is where you'll see a lot of our live videos.
Cool. Well, listen, I want to get into it, and I want to talk about some shit that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Really, I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. I don't pay attention. But what I'm curious about is, talking about the harder aspects of creating. I mean, some of the stuff that I was talking to Scott about. I mean, like, what are some of the challenges you face when you're trying to create? You're also a writer. You write novels, and you're a damn good writer.
Thank you.
So, I mean, but I also know you as your friend too. And, and as a fellow creative, and I know that we've had some long talks about the struggle just to create, the struggle to find a concept, the struggle to, whatever. I mean, so
team relevant
in talking about, I'm interested in this whole Indie Brigade thing, basically becoming almost a resource where people can come and hear stories about other people going through some of the same stuff and maybe help figure out ways to, overcome issues that other people out there listening might be having or something like that. I mean, so in terms of, like, say you want to write a song or you want to write a new novel, where do you start? Where does your inner creative start? What's that flame or that seed?
Well, first off, we've talked about this before. Anybody who's creative is immediately cursed, because it doesn't matter. It's like it's one of the most ridiculous things. You're always told it's good to be creative. It's good to be creative. When you get older, it's like I still want to be creative, but I can't get it out the way I need to. Because it doesn't matter. Like, when you're creative and you're trying to do something with it, music wise, directing, writing, anything, just painting, it's a surefire thing that you're going to get turned down with it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to take a lot of beatings to get to where you need to be, or at least almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, I'm with you.
It's like, when it comes to writing, it could be a shitload of things. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, just try to keep it, like
PG-13, not R.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, just want to make sure.
I haven't sworn maybe once.
Right. Well, I heard y'all talk about it a minute ago, but yeah, it's like, when it comes to writing, it could be like, you see like a couple of people, and immediately, for some reason, a really crazy story thought like goes through your head of like how these people met. Where are they walking to? What are they doing? And that's how I start a lot of my writings when it comes to being a musician, because those are the only things I really know how to do in that field. But being a musician, it starts with a riff. It starts with that one or two chords that just make it happen for you, make you smile, make you nod your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I can't play an instrument to save my life, but I get it because I think that there's a translation from that to to just literally the creative in general. You know, I mean, if you use riff as more of a universal term, that's not necessarily actual musical notes or a phrase or anything like that. You know, riff can be metaphorical in so many ways, and you know, I think is that what you're talking about? Kind of, it's that same thing, but you're talking literally when it comes to the music. So
both.
So that's cool. Okay, so now you get this, right? You have this spark, you have this riff, you have this thing, and then why do so many of us wait and not jump on it? What gets in the way? What stops that from happening?
Well, you get older, because for a lot of us that, you know, have been playing music since we were like in our early teens, whatever, you know, a lot of people, a lot of your family members are just going, it's just a phase. Please God, let it just be a phase. And then you turn like 30 and you're still playing music.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's gonna stop anytime soon. Even that goes back to being creative. Even things you love doing, at a certain point, you go, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. But you can't. It's around. It's there. It's like, okay, I am no longer going to play music. You know how many times I've tried to quit playing music? I've been trying to quit playing music off and on for years, but I can't just not be. I have to be doing something.
Yeah.
You know?
I know the feeling, man. Okay, so now you overcome it. How do you start? What do you start? Where do you start? Let's talk music and let's talk writing. You know, I imagine, well, knowing you, I think, anyway, go ahead. I'm not going to answer for you.
Oh, no. I mean, like,
how do you start?
How do you start?
How do you get off that starting block? How do you say, well, shit, man, you know, I got my job, I got my this, I got my that, I got my kids, I got my dogs, I got my plants, I got my life gets in the way, I got my excuse after excuse. At what point do you sit down? Because, you know, there's a lot of people that you and I both talk to out there who say, oh, I have all these ideas, but, you know, I could never do it. I would never. And they're happy. They resign themselves to that. You know?
Yeah, I couldn't be that person at all.
That person at all. So what is the difference? What's the difference between?
You have to make, there's the people that are like, well, I've got this idea and that idea, and that'd be great, but don't ever execute because they don't to the point. They're different from the ones that are going like us, that are like, you know, I have to do this because if I don't, it's going to be bugging me. It's going to be in my head over and over again. And, you know, it's like there's times where I'll have a riff, or like Josh will have a riff, and it never leaves your head. And it's like you have to wait a week and a half to have band practice. But you make time for that. You make time every, I don't know, once a week. We only practice once a week because that's the little time we have. It's when it comes to kids, jobs, other, you know, life things. Life happens, as you said.
Sure.
You know, it makes it hard because there's been so many fucking times. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
PG-13 usually has one F. Okay,
yeah,
they always use one F. My bad. You know how we talk. You know how we talk, not on here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's like you have to do something. You make, even if it's like 10 minutes of picking up your guitar, or 10 minutes of sitting at a computer screen and just staring at it. Because there's been times, and that's probably one of the hardest, most painful things to do, is when you're like, I want to write. I don't know what the hell I'm going to write, but I'm going to write something, and you sit there and you just stare at it, and you just look at it.
Yep.
And sometimes that, I don't know, that one text message or that one like noise outside or whatever, like gets your brain going, and boom, like 20 pages right there of like just nonsense that you put together that actually works. Well-constructed noise. You know?
You just flow. You just flow at that point. That's cool. And it's the same with music, right? It's the same when you know, I mean.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we you know, you've heard a recent song that we've been working on. We've got 2 new songs we've been working on. And the one I let you listen to the other day, it's one that we started like that. We play it like 3 or 4 times in practice now.
Yeah.
And it just clicked. Josh had this riff, and that riff was in my head for like a week and a half. We went to band practice, and I already knew what I was going to do on drums.
Yeah.
And we executed it like amazingly. The version you heard was the second time we played it. And even though there are some quirks in it, we've worked out since then. Like it sounds pretty solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the fact that hopefully you're going to have a lot more songs to write here soon, because you're actually going to be scoring Scott Lake's film. And Scott is
Exactly.
Scott was on the show just when we opened, and he's on hold now.
Well, I got to ask something. Nobody's going to discuss the elephant in the room pertaining to creativity. Where did this band name come from?
Actually, okay. All right. That's a good question. Josh and I were in a band, which Josh being the guitarist in Bastard Sons of Judas Goat, because we are a 2-piece. Me and him were in another band, and we had band practice one day. It was a rainy, nasty day, and the only people that showed up was Josh, because it was his house, me, and our bass player at the time. Our bass player jumped on drums, I jumped on bass, and Josh was playing guitar, and we were like, screw it, we're just going to say forget those guys, we're going to be a 3-piece, we're going to be called Judas Goat. Moving on a few years later, that band called it quits. I was in another band that called it quits. And Josh and I started jamming. And we were like, what do we call this? And I was like, Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. Or I was like, I said something like that. And he's like, I don't remember that ever being a thing. I was like, I do. And he still has no recollection of that ever being said. I don't think. But I remember specifically that's what we were like, Judas Goat. And the Bastard Sons thing came a little while later, but we get a lot of comments and a lot of compliments on that name. So I'm glad you asked, Joe.
Right on. Absolutely.
There you go. Episode 1, Redux. I didn't even think, because I've known you so long. It's just the name of your band, and I think it's an awesome band name.
I'm going to pull Scott up for 2 minutes so they can discuss what's going on with that, and then we're going to have to get Bryan on.
Okay.
What's up?
Scott.
Yo.
Scott, Chuck, Scott.
How's it going, man?
So
talking in person instead of through text. I like it.
Yeah. Can you hear Scott?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You can't hear me at all?
I can hear you just fine. I can't hear Chuck.
That was Chuck.
Can you hear me? This is Chuck. Can you hear me?
Here we go.
We can dance if you want to.
No, I'm saying all I can hear is just you asking me if I can hear.
Who's who? Is it me or Cameron?
I don't know. So I'm going to ask a question. If Scott answers it, then we'll know he can hear me. So
right.
Scott, so I have Chuck on, and you guys are now working together. Chuck and Bastard Sons of Judas Goat are going to do the score for Killing Time. Maybe can you talk about that and how you felt about their music with regard to how you think it fits in with your film?
Well, considering that you right off the bat recommended these guys, was enough for me to be like, all right, they're going to be worth a listen at least. So I pull them up, listen to 2 or 3 tracks, and I'm sold.
They're pretty great, right?
Oh yeah, the
Thank you.
The doominess, if you will.
Yeah.
The doominess, that dark ambience it has. I think that's going to work really well in Killing Time.
Cool.
I think it's going to be able to punctuate what I want it to punctuate.
Chuck, this is a new thing for you guys, scoring a film. What's going through your mind with regard to it? I mean, you've seen the rough cut. How do you guys feel about scoring your first film? And what are some things that you're both looking forward to and maybe apprehensive about?
Okay. First off, we're incredibly excited about it. I think it's really cool that this partnership happened because of this podcast, or didn't happen because it happened. You know what I mean? because like it's really cool because we scored one thing a while back. There was a collection of people on, I guess, like a noise ambient thread thing that they were going to score this old movie called, it was a Russian film, I think, called Man with a Camera. And each person was placed in a different scene and had to score that scene. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And we had always talked about the idea of like taking like some old movies that people don't even know, whatever, and like put our own little fill on them. We put out something a while back where the inspiration for what we were doing was while watching a messed up movie called The Begotten. Have you ever seen that? That movie's terrifying. But yeah, we've wanted to do that for a long time. And so we're glad to actually have the opportunity. We're actually really excited about it. The first time when we actually watched it, we had like 2 pages in Josh's notebook of ideas of this scene and doing this and this, and and after talking to Scott about the direction he wants to go with things, we're really even more excited because he pretty much is like, hey, like, I like your stuff. Here, go with it. And we really hope that everything works out and you like what we do.
Did Scott hear that?
Not a word of it.
Well, it was very nice.
Watch it back later and text me.
So with that technical difficulty, look, I think that we did a pretty good job for our first couple interviews here. Scott, thank you for coming on. I love you. Chuck, thank you for coming on. I love you, brother.
Thanks for having me on.
And we'll have updates on this Killer Time and this project and this partnership between these two guys as the project progresses. But right now we got to move on because I have Bryan Tann on hold. He's a brilliant author and host of the Plotaholics, and we got to jump over to him for a little while. So, guys, thank you very much. Love you both tremendously. Have a great night, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, bro.
If I may make a suggestion, if you guys want to hang down in the lobby for a little while, and if we can incorporate you in anything, we may. So let's see what happens.
I'm down.
Wow, that's fancy.
We're going to play a new game, George. It's going to be called Read My Mind. Oh, let me get Bryan up here. Hopefully, Bryan.
Candy right here, Joe.
Well played. Very well played. Oh, another time.
Bryan.
Heyo.
What's going on?
Oh man, another day, another nickel, and then I was taxed to a penny.
Oh, I hear you, man. I hear you. Oh man, it's good to see you. I'm watching you on Facebook. I'm loving what I'm seeing. You're going through this whole metamorphosis, man. It's crazy cool.
I tell you, man, it's been a crazy ride, but I'm telling you, I'm just having a friggin' ball, man. I'm like Marv dragging a guy face first in a speeding car, man. I'm just having a ball.
You look great. It means the world to me that you came on to here tonight, man. It really does.
Oh man, I'm just honored to be asked, man. You and I have been, going back and forth for going on 2 years now.
Yeah.
So you know, man, if you need me to show up for something, I'm there, man.
Hey, back at you, man. Anything you need. Listen, the reason I wanted to have you on is because you're a brilliant author. And we've had some pretty deep conversations there on the old social media.
Yeah, we have, man. It's gotten deep, man. It's gotten really deep.
Yeah, with the tweets and all the things the young kids are doing these days.
Oh yeah, the kids tweeting the Twitter, staying woke.
And I woke up this morning.
Yeah, me too. I woke up this morning,
and it's a good day.
Sleep.
Right? Every day above ground's a good day, right?
Damn right. Absolutely.
So I want to talk about writing. I want to talk about your creative process. I'm sure I'm not sure how long you've been waiting to go on. I don't know if you.
I've just been sitting back enjoying the conversation, man. I'm
Cool, man. Well, I mean, we've even talked about this a little bit. The point of the Indie Brigade is, number one, to talk about kind of the stuff that most people don't talk about, sort of the higher level or the skewed viewpoint or the, you know what I mean? The things that most everybody goes on and says, I'm working on this. It's great. It's about, this and that. And everybody jerks each other off for a while over that stuff. But I don't want to do that. I want to, obviously I want to talk about stuff we're working on because that's cool and that's our lifeblood, right? That's what keeps us alive.
Right.
The thing that I want the Indie Brigade to be about is, why is that our lifeblood? What is that pumps through us? What makes us be the kind of people who have to do this? And how do we find other people to work with? Because the secondary purpose for this Indie Brigade, or the primary purpose, I guess, hopefully at one point in the future, is going to be that this whole thing becomes a resource. We're going to start a secret online community. So if you've been on the show, you'll be invited to join the community. If you interact with, or you become an active, like an activist for the show or things like that, you get invited into the community. And it's a community for true independent, fringe, outlaw creators, filmmakers, writers, photographers, musicians, name it. But a place where we can connect with no pressure, with no, douchebaggery, no bullshit, just people trying to help each other out. I'm a woodworker, and I have been my whole life. And there's a brilliant online community for woodworkers where everybody's truly and legitimately supportive.
That's awesome.
And legitimately offers help and offers guidance. And, it's cool for the community. It's also largely from selfish reasons, because part of what we do, the creative, in my mind, is we have to get it out one way or another.
Absolutely.
When you've been down this road as long as I have, and as long as you have, you learn things. And it's kind of like with a kid. You see a kid reaching for an outlet with a fork, and you're like, oh, that's going to be a bad idea. If we can do things to help people or stop them from making bad choices, or help them make better choices, or help them to create one way or another, we can all come together, and that becomes the community around the Indie Brigade. So
absolutely. And I really wish that there were something like this when I first got started, man, because you want to talk about growing pains and learning things the hard way. Oh, sweet Jesus.
So tell me about that. Okay, so what are you talking about, right? Because those are the comments people make, and then somebody goes, oh, I bet it was tough, and then they move on. So, let's talk about that.
All right. Well, so I started working on my first novel back in 2006. I had moved from my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Rindge, New Hampshire. And if you ain't heard of it, don't worry, I hadn't heard of it either. It's like 65 miles from Manchester, New Hampshire, and about 100 some odd miles from Boston. And it's literally, there's just not much going on. It's beautiful countryside, beautiful when the seasons change. And, and I met some cool people, but, they're also not the most diverse group up there. So, I was having a rough time, and, I'm a gamer, and I didn't have a gaming group. And, we were still in the infancy of social media. So I couldn't just game with people online, like you can now. So,
right, like LAN parties were a thing.
Right, I could, and I couldn't do it. So, back when I was in high school, I used to have this reoccurring nightmare. Now, I had tons of nightmares as a kid because I was 6 years old when Return of the Living Dead. I was 5 when Return of the Living Dead came out in 84, 85. So I was about 5, 6 years old. And I used to sneak and watch it as a kid. So, and I grew up right near one of the biggest cemeteries and crematoriums in the city of Pittsburgh. So every time it rained, I thought that the zombies were coming. So I'd be pushing my couch in front of the door. So I always had nightmares, like constantly. And then I remember I always had this one nightmare back when I was in high school. I'd be in this old school, like medieval dungeon. And every time I would walk by a door, a monster would come out, and I'd be fighting, and, I have to fight for my life. When I get to the end of the corridor, I'm busted up, I'm bleeding. The door opens, and this last monster that's there, I can't see its face. And me and this monster are fighting, and we're going at it for like, a day and a night. And I slip, and just as my neck gets broke, I see myself. And then I wake up just as I die. Well, I'd had this nightmare so much for so long, and I had no outlet for it. And I remember I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and I had to, I went into, go to the hospital. And as I went, as the cops were taking me, it was almost like I was in the car, but I had no control of the wheel. And there was this other entity there that classified itself as Bryce. So when I was in the hospital, and I spent a lot of time to myself, and then I realized I started to get to know this entity a bit. And then when I got out of the hospital and I started going to my gaming groups again, I made this character into a role-playing character. And I was still having the nightmares, but they weren't as bad. So, fast forward a couple of years, and, I'm doing the music thing around Pittsburgh. Nothing's really coming about. I meet my ex-wife. I moved to New Hampshire. I just sit at her laptop. I open up Word, and I just start typing. And one page turned to 10. 10 pages turned to 30. 30 pages turned to 100. I realized I'm writing journal entries, man. I'm writing journal entries as this character, Bryce. So then I start reworking it, and then that's how I started working on my first novel. Ended up being titled The Enforcer. I started trying to get it out there and I've been hitting the head a lot, so my timing is always off. I've said in some interviews it was between 2007. It was between 2007 and 2009, and I'm trying to get the book out there. I'm like, well, obviously I'm gonna get a publisher. I wrote the next great American novel, and this is gonna be amazing. So I ended up printing the whole thing out as best I could, mailed it to myself. So I'm like, well, now it's copywritten because I mailed it to myself. And, and then I'm trying to get in touch with publishers, and it's just like form rejection after form rejection because I didn't know how to write query letters. I'm just putting stuff out there. And then it's like, someone said, well, try getting an agent.
Yeah.
And I remember this one, it was called the New York Literary Agent something or whatever. Yeah, it didn't even sound right, but it's like, but they must be agents. It's online. Everything you see online has to be real. So about 80 to 120 bucks later, I realized these folks ain't doing jack for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, gain my stuff back, blah, blah, blah. And if you try to keep my stuff, I'm going to sue you, blah, 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 talking all tough. So then I realized Amazon does self-publishing. So I put the book on there to self-publish. Nobody read it. The only people that got it were people, like 3 people that knew me. And I was so pissed. I mean, I even had a signing at a local bookstore. No one really showed up for it. It was the biggest damn disaster of all time. And I was so pissed that I practically quit writing right then and there. Like I was just done.
Yeah.
But then I was like starting to work on the second book. And then I was like, screw it. I'm not doing this no more. I'm done. And then I started working on another something. And then I was like, no, I'm done. And then I started working on an erotic crime thriller that I called Ed and Livy. And it's like, no, I'm done. And then this person that I was seeing, who I don't even really like to think about too much, but, I was being told, why don't you just finish this book? I'll pass it on to my publisher, see what happens. So I went to this cool little coffee shop in Burlington, Vermont, which was about 15 minutes from where I was living at the time. And I had like 5 cafe mochas with 10 shots of espresso each. I literally didn't sleep for a whole weekend. And I got this book written in a weekend. I went from like page 2 to page however many it took to be finished. And I was done. And I felt pretty good. Then someone made the suggestion of narrating audiobooks. At this point, we're at like 2013, 2014-ish. So I start doing audiobook recording, and that's how I meet TJ Weeks. And I'm doing his audiobook for his book, Unfleshed. And it's crazy. You know, me, you know me, I'm not really religious. I'm a spiritual person.
Sure,
But, Lord works in mysterious ways, man, because I do this audiobook for TJ Weeks. He and I become friends. And then he invites me to write for his Painted Mayhem anthology back in the day. And I didn't think that I could do it. I've talked to this guy. He's a guy who wrote for a lot of years as his only gig. And, he's got all these other authors involved. It's like, who the hell am I? I'm some dude that couldn't even get people to buy his self-published book on Amazon. Come on now.
You're a good author. That's who you are.
And, and that's what he said. He said, look, I wouldn't ask you to do it if I didn't think you could. So I'm like, all right. So I wrote this story called A Father's Love, and I was damn proud of it. And then I started getting that feel back, that urge back. So then I start working on the sequel to The Enforcer. I'm supposed to be working it, but I'm, and then, I start working on the sci-fi, and I'm all over it. I end up meeting up with one of the other authors that was in the anthology, Kendra Souter, and she and I started becoming friends. And I happened to, on a humbug, picked up her book, The Harvested, the first book in her Permutation Archives. And I fell in love with this book, man. It was such an awesome book because it was compared to like X-Men meets Hunger Games. And it's like, well, I like one of those things. X-Men rules.
Right.
So I'm reading this book and I'm getting into it. And then I get this idea. And I go back to this 3-chapter book that I started writing. And the file was even titled, What the F Are You? Like, I had no clue what this thing was. But this character was doing like Bryce Creed used to do. Come on, man. I'm here.
Yeah.
So I'm working at West Penn Hospital, which is about 1.5 miles from my house. So I'm walking to work, and I messaged Kendra Souter. I said, hey, listen, I need to pitch something to you. I just need 5 minutes of your time. And she says, okay. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm thinking this is going to make or break me being a writer at this point because, I finished The Hunted, which is the second book of the Bryce Creed series, the Path of Redemption series.
Right.
And, but again, it wasn't really doing anything, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to keep this up. So I pitch her what would be our book, Invincible Heart, which is the first book in the Permutation Archives division. I pitch it to her. Here's my idea. And Kendra stays quiet. She listens. After 5 minutes, she goes, now you have to write this. Yeah. You have no choice.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes. So I get to work and I'm brainstorming everything. I have this little notebook because I'm a security supervisor. So this notebook is supposed to be for incidents. I'm writing little notes in my little notebook there. And it's like, oh, someone's car got hit. Who gives a shit? I'm working on a book. F you, man.
Right.
So finally, a month later, the first draft of Invincible Heart is available. It's done. And then Kendra mentions me to her publisher at the time. And they say, we love this book and we want to buy we want to publish all your stuff. I'm like, yeah, I got a publisher. This is awesome. However, you get what you want, but it's not what you need. And this is nothing against, my very first publisher. I appreciate them greatly, but it just wasn't a good fit. The philosophies weren't the same. So earlier this year, I said, you know what? I want to exercise my option. I'm dissolving my contract because this just isn't working. So I take all my books to Kendra and her husband Ed's publishing house, Burn Willow Press. And I'm so excited because he's like, this is where I feel like my books belong. Kendra and Ed understand me, and this is all worked out. Well, and they put out the sequel to Invincible Heart, Unbreakable Mind. And I was so proud of that. I was so proud. And then, Invincible Heart comes back out. And just as, we're ready to put the Enforcer back out, unfortunately, Burning Willow Press has to close its doors because, there's, issues going on, and Kendra and Ed to make that difficult decision. And
sure. So here you are now. You're
Yeah.
back in the same kind of spot you've been in.
Yeah, kind of.
And the one thing that was I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, it's cool. I was just going on and on and on. So I was just
it's cool. I wanted to kind of kick on a couple of things that you said real quick, because one of the things that I picked up on is something that even Chuck said when he was on earlier, which was it's that feeling of wanting to quit. And, but then not being able to. And it's interesting to me because the stuff that has pushed you, you're saying actually physically manifests itself within your inner creative, to the point where not only do you have to get it out, you've got to find a mission to make sure it gets sold and make sure other people read this thing that manifested within your mind.
I do, because
and you get closure from that.
I do, because I'll tell you something right now. If I don't write, man, these characters that live in my head will not let me rest. I mean, I've had times where I've had to be up at work early and I can't sleep because all these voices, and you say, oh wow, I hear voices and blah blah blah. Next thing you know, the guys in the butterfly nets are coming. But I will sit at my laptop and I will write and write and write. And it's like, are you bastards finally satisfied? Can I go back to sleep? It's like an internal struggle.
Yeah.
Because when I try to quit, when I try to not do it, it's like, because I don't have anything else. I'm not good. I'm good at playing video games. I'm good at running my mouth, and I'm a writer. And that is my main thing. I am a writer. So I can't quit writing. And I was so fortunate when Burning Willow Press closed its doors that Random Evolved Media was being run by Richard Pruitt's an awesome dude. And, he has a great vision and a great understanding of an amazing understanding of marketing and, promotion and everything else. He comes to me, I get a call from Ed Souter saying, hey, listen, there's an opportunity for you. So listen to what Richard has to say. And the way Ed said it, because Ed knows, and as you know me long enough by now, I don't trust people.
Yeah.
I don't really dig new people coming into my atmosphere, because I'm very paranoid about people.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't really talked a lot to Richard, but Ed comes to me and he vouches for him. And I said, well, listen, if you're vouching for him, I'll hear what he has to say.
Sure.
And then now, Richard says, listen, I love your stuff. I love what you do. I love what you're about. I want to publish your stuff. And I said, hey, Ed vouched for you. So, and that's one of the things too, for if you're just starting out, man, and I said this every single show that I've ever been on, if you're new, you're trying to come into this game, man, you want to get yourself surrounded by some good quality folks. So when opportunities come your way and someone that you trust comes to you and says, here's an opportunity, it's gold, because there's some snakes in this business. There's some monsters in this business, man. There's monsters that they will make these cats sitting in Washington look like kittens by comparison.
Yeah, and there's more of them than there aren't. There's more of them than the other kind.
There really are. So you've really got to surround yourself with good quality people, good mentors, good friends, and be a good friend to these people too, because one of the best and one of the greatest communities is the independent community, whether it's music, writing, film, wrestling. Independent communities are some of the best communities, because we don't have the same bullshit that the mainstream does. Like, yeah, you're going to get some toxic ass people with some toxic ass personalities.
Sure.
But the cool thing is that everyone is just the average Joe, just like everyone else, just trying to get by.
That's right. And here's why I think the indie community is such a good community. Here's a major contributing reason, and tell me if you agree with this. Mm-hmm. I think it's because all of us indie creators, for the most part, right? Like, there's, if the government was to do profiles on demographics of people, right? There's like serial killers. We were loners with, they were loners with no whatever. And now indie filmmakers, we're we were loners with no sense of community. And now we come together in this community, and, you know, we're accepted, and we accept, and we love and support and push and help. And, you know, and it's cool, but there's nothing formalized for it. And that's, you know, and that's where I think if we can have a place like the Indie Brigade where we can go into a private group, and by the way, everybody on tonight will get their invitation to the Facebook group after the show. And I mean, you'll be the founding members of it, so just be us.
Word.
We'll get more people in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, I think that sense of community is something that's there in terms of support and love, you know, in terms of people clicking like, right?
Absolutely.
But I think that we want more of a share type community where, you know, where we can get to a point where somebody's on a set and they run into a problem where they have to change a shot and change a script and do all kinds of stuff. And I want them to share those kind of experiences. Or somebody's got a book out and a publisher says, we're going to publish your book, but we need you to make these edits. And the struggle that you're going to go through with some of those edits and how you deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I feel like you and I could talk for hours about some of this stuff.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, and
we really could.
I hope you'll consider coming on, you know, on a regular to talk about more.
Absolutely, man. I already told you, man. If you need me for something, man, you know I'm there.
Back at you, man. It'll be really good stuff. And you know, I think we're at a point with this community of creatives where, you know, I'm not saying everybody has to go throw around their ideas. That's not what it's about. It's about the support. It's about keeping going. It's about when you wanted to quit, when Chuck wanted to quit, when, you know, when I've wanted to quit, when everyone I know who continues to make stuff and does stuff wanted to quit. It's that thing that keeps them going. And then on the other hand, the thing I'm looking forward to for some other viewers of this is, you know, maybe people who are out there saying, oh, I have this idea, but I'm afraid to do it. Or I have this idea, but life gets in the way and I can't do it. And,
you know what, if you say you can't, you know, and I'll this is one of my favorite quotes. And I'm quoting the wrestler Diamond Dallas Page, who's the founder of DDP Yoga, which is changing my life. If you say you can, or you say you can't, you're 100% right.
That's right.
You can either do it or you don't do it. And it's cool. You know what? Here's the thing. Sometimes you got to take a step back sometimes. For your own emotional health, you got to take a step back.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to do that, you know, but I'm getting ready to slowly get back into it. You know, at the end of the day, being an indie, the only difference between being an indie anything and not is doing it.
That's right.
I mean, hell, you know, you've got your show, you're doing your show. I do my show with the great Shane Wilson, you know, where we do our film review. And I'll tell you something right now. It's picking up, and I didn't think it would, but it's because we're just doing it, and it's not work. It's fun to do, and it's not even just fun. It's stuff that we already do. We already write. We write our articles like you and I are doing. We're shooting the breeze, and, you know, we're talking about stuff. It's what we do.
That's
and
right.
when we write, it's what we do, you know? And it's like, if you want to be, if when you wake up in the morning and all you can think about is writing or filmmaking or whatever the hell it is, then that's what you are. That's what you're meant to be. So do it. And the cool thing is now, for the cats that are coming up, for those of us that were in it before there were communities online, you know, you cats are coming at a great time, because us old heads had to have our hearts broken and our pride stomped on and all of that to get to this point. We had to.
Beyond that, man, we had to go a lot further for our resources too. I had to take
Absolutely.
3 buses to get downtown to go to the comic shop that had the weird VHS tapes of the movies you couldn't find anywhere else when I was growing up. You know what I mean?
Same
And
here,
like,
man. To get to Odds in downtown Pittsburgh, man, I had to
there
do
you
that
go.
same thing.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Odds, actually.
Yeah,
So,
you know, I know you know Odds. I know you know Odds.
Odds is where you had to go, and then there was also Incredibly Strange Video, which is where you went if Odds failed you. You went to Incredibly Strange Video, and there wasn't anything that guy couldn't get.
Right, exactly.
But there was no way for guys like us to see it if we didn't go to those extremes. Now you can Google it, and
Yeah, now you just Google and there it is. Or if you go into Oakland and hang out with Phantom of the Attic on Universal. For those of who don't know Pittsburgh, Oakland is where the University of Pittsburgh is. It's like the central hub of Pittsburgh. Some places is downtown. For Pittsburgh, it's Oakland.
Yeah.
And, CMU is like on one side of Oakland. Pitt is on the other side, and everything just comes together. And yeah, you would go to the Phantom of the Attic or some of the many indie record stores or the indie music stores that were movie stores to get the stuff you couldn't see. You want to get a Asian bootleg version of Night of the Living Dead done in color. That's where you went to go get it. But I swear to God, I could never watch any of those old black and white movies in color because it's a freaking sacrilege.
Right, exactly. But listen.
Yeah, I had to be a film snob for a second.
That's all right. You're kind of speaking to me there, to my heart there, and I could literally go on for another hour with you about it. Listen, I gotta introduce my next guest, Dan Yeager. I don't know if you guys have ever met. If you're not doing anything and you want to hang out,
oh man, I'd love to, but I got to get up in the morning for work.
Oh, bro, you do it, man. Get up. Go.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll definitely take a rain check on that because I love the concept of the show. You're my bro, man. I dig you. You need me around, I'm there. If you're doing and you just need someone to just show up out of the clear, hit me up. I'm there.
Back at you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, man. You have a good night.
All right, you too, guys. Take care, Joe.
Later.
Latest.
All right, man. It's been pretty fast paced tonight. Let me. I think we got Dan in the lobby right now, and I'm giving you a couple of second warning, Dan. Oh, you're live.
All right.
Hey, Dan.
I'm alive.
Dan, can you hear me?
I hear you. I don't see anything.
Hey, look at that.
We can at least
fixed
talk. Can
it.
you see me?
Yes. Can you see me?
I don't see anything. It says be live.
He's on a phone, so he's not going to see.
Well, just know that I fixed it and I look fantastic.
Awesome.
You did fix it. And you know what? I'm going to bow out now because I've done enough damage for the evening. But one thing, wait, I got to say one thing. Dan, I thought you had to have the facial hair until October. What happened?
I don't know why people get so hung up on beards. There's a lot of, I don't know.
Because you're the man with the beard and a good beard.
Yeah. Sometimes I get just sick of it, and I don't know. There's no plan. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It just is. It'll be back by December in all its glory.
Oh, who are you kidding? You're not going to shave?
Or it won't. I'm not committing to anything. Actually, you're not gonna corner me, Joe.
Well, I mean, who are you kidding? You don't have to shave for 3 days and you look like the Wolfman. So we're all very envious of the bearded man. But anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to drop out. You guys discuss.
All right, Joe.
Dan,
How you been?
I've been great. How about you?
Pretty good.
Good. It means a lot to me that you came on the episode 1 Redux or Redo or however you personally prefer to pronounce it. I really was excited about having you on here because, as you know, we're friends on Facebook, and I watch the tone of some of your posts, and I really identify with it. And for instance, the other day you said that you were a dark and stormy guy, not a once upon a time guy. And I actually relate to that. And so when we were going through the Joe translator, I was asking you about a question. We had an author on earlier named Bryan, who and a musician friend of mine on named Chuck earlier. And one of the things that they both said about their struggle coming through and coming up so far has been all the times they wanted to quit, and all the times they wanted to go back to the private sector, and all the times they wanted to stop the creative endeavors. And, as a creative, it seems a common thread among a lot of us is this constant battle that we're fighting to try to decide to want to quit. at which we then ultimately lose that fight. Like we go into that, it's like walking into a bar fight, you know, you're going to lose. Right. And so, you know, and one of the viewers commented up during that conversation and said that you have to have your pride broken as a creator to become a better creator. And, you know, based on sort of the dark and stormy night side of your creative, I was curious for your sort of take on that, whether or not you think you've got to have your pride broken. I agree with that on a lot of levels, and I disagree with it on some levels.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a necessity. I bet it does actually, you know, inform one's creativity. I've never really, you know, ever doubted myself. I don't know. Blame my mother. She was, you know, she was an encouraging mother.
So you've never had a God, I can't do it anymore. I got to quit. This is bullshit. I'm done.
No,
never once.
no.
That's awesome.
I
don't even know what that must be like.
You know, it's always been okay. I've gone as far as I can with this particular pursuit in my life, and you know, I want to try something else. But it's always been, you know, every creative endeavor, I think, has, you know, its own life.
Yeah.
And they eventually die, you know. Move on. Don't get hung up on, and certainly don't, you know, don't. I don't know. I could never allow it to, you know, shake my faith in myself. I don't know why. Maybe I'm ridiculous, but
I don't think so. I think that's probably, I think that's, you know, look, everybody's inner creative is different from everybody's inner creative, right?
Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, certainly in acting school, every acting class I've ever taken, every audition I've ever done. No, not every audition. Sometimes I think I nail it. And sometimes, most of the time, I think, oh, that was terrible. And I'll get a call back, you know. I don't know.
Well, see, so that's the same thing. That's what that's what we're talking about. It's that is self-doubt. That is that thing inside your voice that says, damn it, you know.
Well,
then you keep going.
It's always the work, you know. It's never me.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I can do a lot better, you know. It never, you know. I mean, every movie I've ever done, which is not that many movies, but you know, watching them, I always see, oh, I could have done that better. You know, that's the curse of cinema, is that, you know, you only get so many takes, and then the editor gets to choose what they like, and you know.
I'll tell you, look, here's something. Here's a piece of filmmaker trivia from my brain. I can't watch anything. I can't watch anything I've ever made without remembering every argument that led up to that particular shot. Every battle I had to fight. Every argument I had to win. Every obstacle that came between okay, you know, rehearsals up and, you know, roll camera. Literally every edit, every shot of everything I've ever done reminds me of every circumstance surrounding that shot. And it plays over so loud in my head. And it's not until years later that I think, oh, maybe I should have moved the camera 10 feet to the left.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always that. But no, you know, I've never, none of that has ever, you know, been able to affect my core belief in myself. You know, you know, everybody's their own worst critic, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, people ask me all the time, you know, especially, you know, since I've been doing a lot more writing, I talk to other writers and, you know, people who want to be screenwriters. And I always tell them, you know, your first script, your first completed script is gonna suck. And I tell them that as they're handing me their first completed script. And I said, your second completed script is gonna suck less. Your third might be readable.
Right.
Your fourth might be good. And the trick with it is that, you know, you never quit. You know, you don't allow your suckiness to make you quit. You know, you can't let that affect your sense of self-worth.
That's
You know,
right.
you have to push through that. And I tell them, Hollywood is full of the people who didn't quit.
That's right.
You know, everybody wants to quit. You know, everybody does poorly. You know, and you know, because I think the first thing you really develop as a filmmaker is your discernment of good cinema. You
Yeah.
know, you look at a movie and you, oh yeah, that's good, or oh, that sucks. You know, they could have done that better, and you develop that long before you actually develop the skills to create it. And so, you know, that's the hard part of the journey, I think.
The learning, the 10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's the fun part, right? Because,
No,
you
it's
know,
all fun. Yeah.
well, yeah, but I mean, that's the when everything's new,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
before you realize that somebody's eye light was, you know, a grip off to the side,
Yeah.
shooting a flashlight through a windshield,
Yeah.
you know, when it's all when you're just starting to pull that curtain back on the
Yeah.
magician, right?
Yeah.
And everything's new and it's like this brighter light, and you go to see movies in the theater and you know, you go with your friends, but you notice things they don't, and
Yeah.
things like that.
About the 100th time I watched Citizen Kane,
Yeah,
I noticed. Do you remember the shot that goes? Uh, it's the shot of the sign of the nightclub where his widow is singing.
yeah,
And the shot goes through the sign. The camera goes right through the sign and then
yeah,
down through the skylight.
yeah,
I forget how many times I watched that before I saw there's actually a physical break in the sign,
yeah,
that as the camera gets just so it gets just close enough, and then, you know, of course the sign moves out of the way and it can continue through. And, you know, I don't know, that just thrilled me so much.
yeah. That reminds me of the first time I found the edits in the opening shot of Touch of Evil, which
Mm,
was obviously Citizen Kane was one of the ones I studied a million times when I was young,
yeah.
but Touch of Evil was the one for me that really got me, and watching
Yeah.
that opening scene. And then I remember for my dad was a movie called Tales of Hoffman,
Mm,
and there's a shot where this creature leaves the room and the cape is present for the rest of the scene, and he used to be fascinated with that. And you know, you're right. I think that those are the things that stick with us, that make
mm,
us want to do that
yeah.
make us want to put things in a camera that not everybody's going to see, that some people are going to see, some people are going to pick up on.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to enjoy the story, but for the most part, there's elements in everything that we do that's really just for us and sort of the, you know, the few who are who catch it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure, you know, um, painters can walk through a museum and have a similar experience. You know, they understand the medium to a level that I'll never understand it.
right.
And, you know, things, things strike them that, you know, affect how they create. You know, the average person, you know, is not a filmmaker. You know, they get to watch movies differently than we do. You know, um, yeah, it's just musicians, I'm sure, you know, uh, have a completely different experience, you know, at the symphony than than I do.
So let me tell you this, like, I think the last time I remember going to a movie and being completely in awe of it was probably the first Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Because pretty soon after that is when I was really starting to study the craft of it, study the technical side of how they did things.
Yeah.
And that was probably the last time I went to a movie as just a pure audience member.
Yeah.
You know, and I miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. It does, you know, kind of becoming a filmmaker, you do sacrifice that.
Yeah,
You know,
but
it's
you know, you're a writer, and I think that it's not just the filmmaking side. I think it's the storytelling side, right?
yeah.
Because you
Oh, yeah.
know, like for me, I could watch a movie that you know has one of the same stories I've seen 350 times,
Mhm.
but it looks different, or there's something unique about it visually,
Mhm.
and it keeps me riveted. Just like I can watch something that's boring visually, but it's a unique story or a unique twist on a story,
Mhm.
and it keeps me riveted. So, but I think as a storyteller and as a filmmaker and as a creator, I think all of those things come together to create like the worst patient, right? Like the worst
Yeah.
patient is a doctor, right?
Uh-huh.
So, you know, I can't sit through a movie with people who don't make movies anymore.
Yeah. No, and like you know, um, I went I went a few years back and saw The Witch,
Yeah.
and you know, I know everybody loved it. You know, but I couldn't get past the the many flaws in it, you know, that just you know, and they weren't like poor photography or lighting or anything like that. It's that, you know, it's the real nuts and bolts of movie making
Yeah.
that, you know, and they kind of, I think they marketed that movie unfairly
I
when
think
when
marketing,
when they told me it was a horror movie. You know, it's not a horror movie.
I thought that movie was visually stunning.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I absolutely thought that movie was visually stunning. But you just touched on a nerve there.
Mm,
The marketing of it, the
yeah.
marketing of the film, right?
Hmm.
So let's talk about independent versus going to a not even a full studio route, just a less
Yeah.
independent route,
Right.
right? Um, you know, we're talking about freedom and we're talking about marketing because, you know, the more we're going forward and the more conversations that I have about trying to get some of these projects off the ground, um, the more I'm realizing how much the formula, right, the Hollywood formula, if I can make the biggest air quotes in the world, right, because
Hmm.
there is no Hollywood formula, everybody knows that. But the Hollywood formula, um, oh man, I kind of it's no longer a formula; it's an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's run so strictly. It is, you know, it's not even about who you know anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like it's about uh do you fit in this demographic chart? I had a meeting once about a project of mine. Now bear in mind I put together this project, this Rise project, that's sort of my personal prologue to my father's early work. Um, and I have a full series Bible. I have a full script. I have lookbooks, concept art, attachments, the whole thing, right?
Hmm.
And I've got also ancillary properties lined up, everything from board games to role playing games to, I mean, literally this amazing thing that I've been developing for years and years and years. And I sent this all to this meeting, and I get on the phone call, and the meeting is, well, if you could picture in your mind a demographic box with 4 grids, I said, okay. And it went on to, one grid is 18 and under female, one grid is 18 and under male, one grid is 18 and over male, and one grid is 18 and under female. How does your project fit into that grid? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I got to go. Are you there? I think Dan froze, Joe.
It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. We must be angering some kind of spirits. I'm sitting here in a 140-year-old Baptist church, and I had my glasses sitting on the couch next to me, and just as the system just totally crashed, and it said this live stream is over, my glasses broke just sitting there on the couch.
What?
It was the weirdest thing. I don't know. I wasn't even touching them. So anyway,
we may be onto something.
You were saying board games and some other thing.
Yeah, right. Okay, so just
that was where it crashed.
So essentially what I was talking about the fact that I've got this project, it's fully packaged, it's fully ready to go, it's fully ready to pitch, and I get on this phone call and the meeting goes something like this. So I sent you all this stuff. Did you have a chance to look it through? Oh, yeah, we went through everything. Okay, great. What'd you think? Well, if you could picture a grid in your mind with 4 squares. And I said, sure. And they said, in one grid is female 18 and under, and another is female 18 and over. And then in a third is male 18 and under, and in a fourth is male 18 and over. Mm-hmm. How do you think this project would fit in to that grid? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's not really the point of this phone call. I ended up getting out of the meeting very quickly because it literally didn't make sense. But that's what everything is boiling down to now, is my point, right? Like, if Hollywood's if a studio is gonna make a movie, they've got different models now, right? They've got the $1 to $3 million, right? They've got $1 million to $3 million budgets. They've got $3 million to $5 million budgets. They've got 5 to 8 or 9 now. Yeah. And then they've got like 13 and over, right? Mm-hmm. So there's nothing in that dead space. And everything that they take on now has to be in that 1 to 3 or that 3 to 5. And then they've got this algorithm where if you're going to direct a $5 million movie, that means you've got to, at some point in your career, already have directed a $50 million movie. Because if you haven't, then you can't possibly direct their $5 million movie and blah, blah. And so then there's this like formula, there's this spreadsheet. And now it's like you get it, you try to go and pick your way into these places. And it's like, if your project doesn't fit in like every check mark of their spreadsheet, then, it either, the best thing that can happen to you nowadays is they just say, no, thanks, tell your story, walk and go kick rocks. The worst thing that can happen is that they give you some sort of 6-month option or some sort of 6-month something or other that A, gives you hope, and B, ultimately just puts your project in purgatory for whatever reason. Yeah. So it's, and I think that this got, first of all, the first piece and best piece of advice I ever got about this industry was it's the only industry you can die from encouragement. Yeah. And so this goes back to, I kind of lost the thread here for a minute, but I'm trying to get it back. What we were talking about earlier with regard to, in being an independent creator and the freedoms that you have and not having to deal with some of the problems, like you brought up a film called The Witch earlier. And, some of the problems inherent with filmmaking that may or may not be the filmmaker or the crew's problem. It may come from some table full of lawyers or, you know what I mean? And so
executives.
The Suits reminds me of remember that movie Amadeus? There's too many notes. Yeah. So, and so now I think we've got this independent, this sort of new independent, right? This new fringe, right? Yeah. Where we've got sort of outlaw creators like you, and we've got these fringe audiences. And, audiences, in my opinion, and tell me what you think about this, audiences don't want to be told go to watch this channel on Thursday night at 9 o'clock if you want to watch the show. Audiences want to feel like they find and discover their own content, even though it's still being fed to them through subversive marketing tactics.
Mhm.
And then at that point, so if that's true, and if you agree with that, and if you don't agree with that, that's great too. I would love to, but if you do agree with that, tell me what you think about that as an independent creator. Where do you come from with regard to audiences, your audiences, when you create, when you want to make something? Do you think about them, or do you not worry about it until it's done?
I
And do you
think
enjoy
about
freedom?
them. I think about them, but if I'm really honest, they are me. I'm not good at I mean, I tell the stories I want to see and want to tell.
Well, as a creator, that's your job. But when
Yeah.
does the audience factor in? When do they show up in your mind and in your project?
I don't know. I guess I've never tried. Well, no, I guess they do kind of influence the letter by letter choice I make as I type. You know,
How so?
and it's a conversation that happens in my head, and it's with somebody else who is watching the thing, or reading the thing. There is another, and I guess that is the audience. And it's informed by the literally thousands of people I've met who love the same stuff I do.
There's a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
There's more than people realize.
Yeah, and to get back to your other point of not wanting to be told when they have to adjust their set to a particular number to consume a piece of content. It is a video on demand culture.
Yeah.
And I think I've lamented that evolution.
So have I.
Because there's something really important, I think, that we have lost, or have all but lost, in having a public announcement of this movie is going to be playing at this place at this time, and if you want to see it, you have to go there with everybody else and sit in the dark with them, whether you like them or not.
Yep.
And watch that movie.
Yeah.
And it was a socially important element of modern civilization, I think, and that's rapidly disappearing. That's the great extinction.
I agree completely. There was a movie theater in Pittsburgh. It was on McKnight Road, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was a standalone movie theater owned by a gentleman who loved movies and had a passion for it. And he kept it. Nobody in town knew it because we had multiplexes and everything, right? So everybody was going there because that was the big experience now. But there was this little movie theater just right down in the middle of this parking lot of a mall, and he had 2 screens. And because he loved movies so much, every time there was a technological upgrade for the theater, he would spend money to get it done. So that was, Dolby or surround sound or a better projector or, whatever. And he showed film prints, and that was, there were enough people in the know, you'd go to the multiplex and there'd be, 5,000 people there. But when movies like Raiders opened, or when movies like Empire opened, you would go to, or E.T., you would go to this movie theater and folks would show up in time for the early morning show to get into the night show, and the line would wrap around the building twice, and you had to go past the exit doors. So now you've got all the people coming out who've just seen it walking past you in line. And you're right, there was a social element to that is gone forever. And you know, and I think that's something that, you know, it's sad to me that creators don't have that in their frame of reference. It's sad to me that creators don't remember what it was like to go to a movie theater and see a ginormous cardboard cutout that was bigger than life for a movie that was coming out in 6 months, and you waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. And then you went and you had this phenomenal experience. I think that there's an inherent element that factors into modern creators that, you're right, stems directly from that experience. I don't know how to quantify it or label it or categorize it, but and I'm not even sure what, if I had to, what I would say. Craig, this guy Craig, terrible with pronunciation, so I'm gonna say Craig. He says it's a generational change. I agree, but there was generational changes that still involved that. You know, just because there's general,
you know, generational change is not necessarily good for the generation. You know.
Well, that's a whole nother. We could do a whole episode about that.
Yeah. No, and you know, it's like radio. You know, I grew up in the Cleveland radio market where we listened to WMMS 101 FM, you know, and television, you know, we watched Channel 61 and Channel 43, you know, those were the monster movie channels. You know, but they were local, you know, they were produced in Cleveland, you know. And you know, you know, you remember in American Graffiti, you know, they're listening to the radio all Friday, Saturday night. And you know, it's a guy on the outskirts of town, you know. People call in and request, you know, it was a community thing. And that's all gone. You know, you listen to your local radio station, it's programmed by some corporation.
That's right.
You know,
we have a little radio station. Yeah, we have a little radio station right downtown here, and you go down there and they've got all the stuff set up in the windows, like they've got old timey DJs and stuff. There's never anybody there. It's all, you know, I don't even know if they record it themselves anymore. They just, I don't know if you can like have a radio station. I'm going to go buy a broadcast and, you know, like stock footage or whatever, but there's nobody ever there. And the radio station's always on. So, but it's, you know, it's crap now. Everything's crap. Terrestrial radio's gone. That social experience is gone. Where, you know, somebody here said in this culture, we're never going to get a situation where the finale of MASH gets as many viewers as it did. I mean, I remember that. I was a kid, but I remember when it did. You know, like that was that gave an entire country of people something to talk about that wasn't their problems. You know what I mean?
Remember when Archie Bunker changed the diaper?
Sure. Yeah.
And we all saw it at the same time on the same night, and the next day we could share that experience with each other.
Right.
You know?
Right. And it wasn't sharing, oh my God, this bill is due and I'm stressed out and what am I going to do? And now I got to get on my grind, or I got to get on a hustle and I got to make money. And there was something about it that allowed us to connect.
And now, you know, The Walking Dead, I think, came close to achieving, you know, that community, you know, but it was not a community based on geography. You know, it was just, you know, all the fans would always tune in, you know, for every episode, you know, at the same time. And now people wait until the season is over and then they binge watch. You shouldn't binge anything, you know,
I think
especially
that
watch.
I think that community was already present prior to The Walking Dead. I think The Walking
Yeah,
Dead gave them
right.
a place to come
Jumped
together.
into
That community was there. That's,
sure.
you know, it's no secret that the indie horror fan base is the single largest fan base out of any fan base, any fandom in the world. I mean, look,
Yeah.
Comic-Cons, look how big Comic-Cons are. That, you know, it could be argued that Comic-Cons were born from independent horror film conventions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the horror community figured out how to come together as a community and do conventions and do shows and all of that stuff long before Comic-Con was ever a thing. And now look what that's grown into.
Wasn't the first one in Cleveland?
The first Comic-Con or the first horror convention?
The first horror convention. Didn't Forrest Ackerman put together a horror convention like back in the early 70s? I don't know.
Yeah,
it sounds familiar. Right. I don't know. I don't have my facts. And
you know, but I mean, the reality is that those things, you know, begat The Walking Dead. Those things begat Comic-Con. Those things, you know, and you know, and now we've got a different kind of sense of community where everybody's, you know, like I know this producer guy who once said to me, you know, he congratulated me on finishing a film that I shot on actual film. And he said, you know, congratulations, you've now breathed rarefied air.
Yeah.
And he was right, you know, and I'm not saying that as a thing of, oh my God, look what I did, blah, blah, blah. But it was really cool because there was a small group of people who knew how to use the equipment that was required to make a film. And there was a lot.
They're dying out.
Right. And so now, you know, and it's wonderful that all this technology has come along and put the ability to make in so many people's pockets. But with so many people making, you know, it's this endless sea of people and content. And, you know, and so, you know, I think now it's like the challenge is no longer to make, the challenge is now how to make stand out. Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's because the system is under assault from both ends. You've got the wonderfully democratizing, you know, effect of technology, putting a high definition camera in everybody's pocket,
sure,
and on everybody's desktop, a full, you know, system to edit the things, and then from the top, it's, you know, they've killed off all the curators.
Right.
You know, there's no guy who owns an independent movie house, you know, scouring the movie catalogs for, you know, interesting titles, reading the trade papers to see, you know, what's there. You know, it's just everybody's on their own, and it's who's got the most money.
Right.
You know, who can occupy, you know, a big enough ad space that, you know, they get enough people to watch whatever thing they want them to watch.
Well, and here's where we're at now, right? Like, there's got to come a paradigm shift. So we have this community of horror fans. We have this indie horror community of people who grew up like we grew up, loving the old stuff, loving the stuff that formed us, respecting the giants that came before us before trying to stand on their shoulders, right? So now what we need is a new form of community. We no longer need a community where horror fans, like, just like everything cool, right? Like what started as cool horror conventions are now overly advertised, overly corporatized, ginormous Comic-Cons that are massive money funnels and all of this stuff. And the horror fans who were there at the beginning or at the early days of these conventions, they're now left with Comic-Cons as their you know, as their big once a year thing. And there's a lot of small horror festivals and conventions, but they're not, they need to evolve too. This whole community needs to evolve, because we're no longer a community of fans. We're a community of makers. We're a community of people who create because we have to create. And so therefore the community needs to evolve. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Indie Brigade here. So instead of being a community to come together and admire, we need to be a community that comes together and inspires and helps to create and says, yo, I'm making a short film. You know, I need a song, and have somebody in the community be like, yo, here's a song. If you love it, let's talk. If you don't, move on. You know, I mean, like, we can all help each other. We're at that point now. You know, I said this earlier, I'm a woodworker. It's the thing that's kept me sane through my entire career. My granddad taught me how to work with wood when I was like 7. And, there's a community, you know. Woodworking was always one of these. You would go off to your little shop with your single light bulb, and you made stuff. And sometimes you would, you know, if people came over and said, hey, need salt shaker, you'd say, yeah, I made it. Well, now, just like everything else, there's this massive community of makers, of woodworkers who respect the traditional methods that came before, who respect how to use a hand plane, who respect how to restore a pre-war Stanley hand plane back to normal. All of that stuff. But this online community, man, these people, they love to help each other. They love to share. Hey, check out this box I just made. Oh, how'd you make that joint? How much do you charge for that? What kind of wood is that? Did you make a jig? And everybody lines up to help. And there's the occasional like asshole, but there's no malice. It's true, genuine collaboratory you know, spirit, and that's what we as indie filmmakers and creators need. It doesn't exist. We, like I've said all along, we support each other and we say, great work. You know, I'll click that like button, but you know, there is no power greater than the power of numbers, and we need that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, because, you know, there are, you know, there are definitely, you know, movie making communities online, but yeah, there really isn't a, you know, cohesive, you know, horror particular, you know.
Right.
But you know, yeah, there are a few starting with just, you know, general movie making.
Sure, like, you know, what kind of camera should I buy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But this is about much more than that. This is about,
Yeah.
hey, I made this movie, I'm working on a distribution deal. Hey, everybody, this is some bullshit I just ran into when it comes to distribution. Look out for this.
Distributor.
You right? You know what I mean? Like, look out for this when you're going down this road. And, you know, like, it's, you know, put it out there and become a resource, a community resource, you know? Anyway. Listen, Dan, it's been a pleasure to have you on. We're after we're running into overtime here, so
You're always going to do that when you invite me, though, because I can't. I just
Well, you and
I have no discipline that way.
You know what? I enjoy talking with you, and I feel like you and I could probably do a whole episode just together, just you and me. So maybe we can do that in the future.
Let's do that.
In the meantime, let's. You know, I want to know what's going on with Zombie Bear Attack. Everybody here wants to know what's going on with Zombie Bear Attack.
I've got the shirts in progress. Send me your size and address. I may actually be able to. I'm doing Rock and Shock in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping to bring some there. I promised a friend of mine some who's going to be there. So
awesome. The artwork is
the
beautiful.
shirts. We've got shirts coming.
Okay. So that's an important step.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. And actually, going back to your talking about film, I was actually looking at shooting Zombie Bear on Super 16.
Yeah, it's a great experience.
I've only ever done one, and I was an actor in a movie that was shot on film. And yeah, it's completely different than digital. Just as even acting is different. You
Yeah,
don't shoot the rehearsals.
not
you
like the
know,
Robert Altman.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Um,
back in the day when yeah, they used
yeah,
to spend ridiculous amounts of money on
I
all that
used to
stuff. But
own.
anyway,
I used to own a couple Airy BL2s,
yeah,
and we shot. I shot a bunch of stuff on them,
yeah,
and I've shot Super 16 and I've shot 35.
yeah.
And I think the worst experience I had shooting film was I was shooting this period thing. It took place in the 50s, and even the camera and the lenses I was using were from the 50s,
Hmm.
and so the video tap goes out on like day 2 of like a 5-day shoot,
Mm,
and it was one of these specialty video taps because the camera was like from the
yeah.
50s. So there was no like there was no call B&H and have them
Right.
overnight me a video tap. So I had
Yeah.
to shoot the whole rest of the thing without video assist.
Yeah. Old
And
school, man.
yeah, and it was great. It turned out great. But
Yeah.
here's the interesting thing. Shooting film, you got to be careful of your processing lab. I shot a film on Super 16, sent it off to the processing lab, one entire like I don't know, like several thousand feet of film came back with a scratch down the middle because
Wow.
they just don't do it as much anymore. So
Yeah.
they were out of practice and they used dirty solution and it ran a scratch down the film and it cost
Oh,
literally it cost it cost so much money to restore it and we never got rid of it. So,
wow.
I mean, but it's look, all of that said, I would shoot 35 or 16 again tomorrow. I love it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. No,
something
I
about it.
seriously considering it. It's not. It's really hard to it's not as expensive as people seem to think it is.
No.
It's certainly more technically demanding,
Yep.
but you know, I I I want to keep those people who know how to do it working. You know.
Well, and that's where the big part of the expense comes from these days is having a crew that's as skilled and experienced in it. You're looking at shorter days and you're
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
so your extra expense comes when the camera dies or you got a dirty gate and but it's such a phenomenal and wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I really 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 want to do all of my audio moving forward. I want to do it all analog too on the
Hmm.
old Nagro reel to reels.
Yep.
The last movie I think that I remember analog audio in was Wolf with Nicholson,
Hmm.
and the audio. If you watch that movie and listen to the audio, it's so warm and it's so right in your lap, and it
Yep.
goes so well with the film. I'm excited for updates on Zombie Bear Attack, man. I really am,
All
and
right.
and if you need a bald biker type, I know a guy.
All right.
Listen, buddy, it's been awesome having you on. It means the world to me that you came on.
Well, thank you very much,
REDUX.
George. It's always a thrill to talk to you.
Back at
So,
you.
Dan, before you leave, what do you have going on in the next couple of weeks or couple of months? You have conventions?
Did I lose you?
Did he not hear me?
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay, so the question on hand, Joe has popped up and asked, and I should have, as a good host, asked this. What do you have upcoming in the next couple of months? What conventions do you have? Where are you going to be? Where can people find you, talk to you, stalk you?
All right. Well, Rock and Shock is in a couple of weeks. That's in Worcester, right near Boston.
Love it.
I'll be in the Scranton area a couple of weekends after that. We're doing a little Halloween party at Watkins Glen International Raceway. I believe it's on Friday the 25th. It's part of their, they have this big autumn beer festival there. But we're doing a real Halloween haunt thing, and I'm not sure what all they've got in mind, but they asked me to show up, so heck, I show up.
Well, there you go. Why not?
Yeah, and in Scranton, I know we're doing a couple of appearances at the train in Honesdale, and if I were a better human being, I'd remember the name of the train line. It's a historic train, and it's where we shot Volition last year.
Very cool.
So we shot it on one of their trains, and we're going to do an appearance there. What else? Nothing that I can remember. Anyway,
That's a lot I mean, you just remembered a lot, so
I know. Yeah, I deserve.
Where can people go to find out stuff that you don't remember now?
Probably the Facebook. I'm just Dan Yeager Leatherface on Facebook. That's the only one I've really figured out how it works.
And Bad Anger Pictures.
So I go with that.
He can't hear me, can he?
Yeah, that's probably the best place.
No, he can't hear you, Joe.
Tell him to mention Bad Anger Pictures too, please.
Joe wants to remind you to mention Bad Anger Pictures.
Bad Anger Pictures. See, that's why Joe's good, because I don't remember things. And yeah, I'll put it on Bad Anger Pictures too.
Cool.
That's a good idea.
All right, and then you'll be getting everybody on tonight will be getting their invitations to the Indie Brigade Facebook group. Right now, it's just going to be us, a happy little group of people. But we are working to grow that group into a large community. So definitely, as you see that growing, please feel free to become an active sort of mentor in there, as much as you're willing or able to do. And and I'm looking forward to having you on some more. And you let me know anytime you want me to come on to yours again. I feel like you and we should start conversations on one show and finish them on the other, and kind of just switch it up like that. I think that would be
great too. All right.
So, all right, buddy. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
A pleasure. Yeah, it's been fun. Have a great night, Dan. Thank you again.
You too. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.
Wow. That was one of the coolest conversations, interviews, kind of. I was just here going, damn, good questions, good answers.
Well, good. I'm glad.
So we had a couple of snafus again, but hey, I'm totally digging what happened here. And thank you, everybody who showed up and was patient, and to everybody who commented and viewed. Greatly appreciated. I'm going to download this and we'll maybe edit a little and put it on YouTube. What do you got going on, George, that they need to know about?
Nothing really, just hanging out.
All right. So where are they going to go to watch you again, hopefully next time?
I love doing that shit to you, Joe. You know,
you're killing me, man. You're killing me. I can feel my face just turning.
You physically turned red. It was awesome. Let me reach for this bag of candy.
That is going to be the best inside joke ever.
So obviously I want to thank everybody who showed up, paid attention, stayed, and hung out and made awesome comments. I know I didn't get to all of them. This is all sort of very free form. Just because I didn't maybe talk about them online doesn't mean we didn't see them, doesn't mean I won't try to respond to all of them or as many as I can, after the fact, if that's even something that's possible. In the future episodes of this, we're currently trying to figure out if this is going to be a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. I'm down for either or. I think it's just gonna kind of be about whether or not, and how often we can book guests and all that kind of stuff. But I hope everybody who showed up and stayed really enjoyed the conversations that were going on tonight. And I hope that everybody's really cool with the concept of what the Indie Brigade is hopefully going to turn into one day. Everything else I'm working on, You can follow along on my Facebook. You can follow along on the Indie Brigade page. You can follow along on my Instagram, which is George Cameron _ Romero.
Now,
and,
wait a minute. Time out. All right, you said Indie Brigade Facebook page,
yeah. Do we have an Instagram? Is there an Indie Brigade?
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube.
All right. See, Joe, this is why you should do this part. Joe is such a good producer. I don't even know half the shit we have. So look, Indie Brigade is on everything now. Apparently, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
You don't do that Snapchat thing. I hear that's dirty.
Yeah, I don't do dirty things like that. But just pay attention, follow along, and for those of you who don't know, I've been a sort of freelance production designer, prop maker, and woodworker my entire life. So we have now, my wife has recently convinced me to kind of put that out into the world. So we do custom woodworking, furniture, prop making, all that kind of stuff. And I really just do it to kind of teach our son, how to start and run a successful small business. So that company is called McKim Wood and Leather. I'm sure y'all will see some plugs for that here and there. You can find links to it all over social media. Come check us out. We make cool stuff. And some of that cool stuff is available for purchase on the internet.
And I got to throw it out there. They have really cool beard combs, which
yeah,
haven't sent me yet. I'm trying, man, with the beard thing. It's
this one. This was my son's first. Wait, where's the camera? My son's first.
The brass knuckles.
Right?
Look at that.
Yeah, so that's pretty badass. You can buy those. We made these for a short film, and he came up with this particular brass knuckle design, and so we sell these on the internet. So
right.
check it out. It's mckimwoodandleather.com. Yeah, shameless plug. Thank you for anybody who stayed to the end.
Absolutely. So we got YouTube, we got Twitter, we got Instagram, we got Facebook. And I have a feeling this is going to be a giant step for the independent filmmaker, musicians, indie in general community. Let's build this thing.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Come back, share this stuff. I love that you click the like button. If you're going to click, I just read a whole thing about the new Facebook algorithms and the way it's happening. The likes are awesome, but Facebook is going to start ignoring the likes. They want people to click love. They want people to click anything that requires them to put more thought into it than a like. And what really matters is those shares. So, share this stuff out, talk about it. The first rule of Indie Brigade is you must talk about Indie Brigade.
And with the actual page, not only like the page, follow the page. They notice that also. So
yeah.
Like and follow the page if you could, please.
Help us spread the word, help us piss people off, and help us make new friends.
And since I know Dan is still watching, Bad Anger Pictures, like and follow that also.
Absolutely.
Because Bad Anger Pictures is the bomb.
And thank you again to Scott Lake, Chuck Daniels, Bryan, Tann, and Dan Yeager for coming out.
All right, we're going to sign off now. Do something. What's going to be your sign off?
I don't have one. I don't have one of those.
No, you're under pressure now. You got to.
I'm not that guy. I'm just going to say, fuck off till next time.
Fair enough. See you guys.